December 19, 1944, 0300 hours. Deep in the Ardennes forest, Belgium. The snow falls like silent artillery, blanketing the world in a white shroud that muffles the distant thunder of tanks. Private Vincent Kowalski hunkers down behind a fallen pine, his breath fogging the air in ragged bursts. The cold seeps through his wool overcoat, biting into his skin like tiny razors. You can almost feel it, the numbing chill that turns fingers stiff, makes every movement a deliberate fight against the freeze. Around him, the remnants of his platoon from the 99th Infantry Division scramble in the dark. German voices echo through the trees, harsh and commanding, carried on the wind like ghosts. "Amerikaner, Hände hoch!" The words slice through the night, but Kowalski doesn't flinch. His hands grip the Thompson submachine gun, the Tommy gun they call it, its wooden stock slick with frost. The .45 caliber rounds chambered, ready to spit fire. He's fired it before, in training back stateside, where the roar felt empowering. Here, in this hellish winter offensive, it's his only lifeline. Bullets whine past, splintering bark. A scream cut short, one of his buddies caught in the open. Kowalski peers over the log, eyes straining against the gloom. Shapes move, gray uniforms, helmets like inverted buckets, advancing in a wedge. Panzers rumble in the distance, their tracks crunching snow and earth. The Battle of the Bulge has erupted like a volcano, Hitler's last desperate gamble, and Kowalski's unit is right in the eruption's path. He squeezes the trigger. The Thompson bucks in his hands, a staccato bark that echoes off the trees. Brass casings tumble into the snow, steaming. 2 Germans drop, but more surge forward. "Fall back!" yells Sergeant Hale from somewhere to his left. But there's no back. They're encircled, cut off in this frozen maze. Kowalski reloads, fingers fumbling with the magazine. His mind races. Back home in Detroit, at Ford's River Rouge plant, he machined parts with precision, turning raw metal into something useful. Here, it's all chaos, no control. A grenade explodes nearby, showering him with dirt and ice. His ears ring. He rolls, fires again. Another shadow falls. But the net tightens. Machine gun fire rakes the line, MG-42s chattering like angry hornets. Hale goes down, clutching his leg. Kowalski crawls to him, dragging the sergeant behind cover. "We gotta move," he mutters, but Hale's eyes are wide with pain. "It's over, Vinny. They're everywhere." The Germans close in, bayonets fixed, faces pale and determined under their helmets. Kowalski's Thompson clicks empty. He reaches for his last magazine, but a rifle butt slams into his shoulder, sending him sprawling. Boots pin him down. Rough hands yank the gun from his grasp, strip him of his web belt, his K-rations. "Gefangener," one shouts. "Prisoner." They're marched out, hands raised through the swirling snow. Kowalski glances back at the forest, bodies strewn like broken dolls, his Thompson now in enemy hands. The cold bites deeper now, not just physical, but a gnawing dread in his gut. Rumors swirl among the captured, POW camps, interrogations, worse. As they load onto trucks, engines growing to life, Kowalski stares at the receding trees. He's no longer a fighter, he's cargo, bound for the unknown heart of the Reich. The journey blurs into days of jolting rides and forced marches. Starvation sets in, thin soup, black bread that tastes like sawdust. Kowalski's mind sharpens on survival, drawing from his machinist's instincts: observe, adapt, improvise. They arrive at Stalag 7A near Moosburg, southern Bavaria, under a leaden sky. Barbed wire stretches like spiderwebs. Watchtowers loom with searchlights that sweep the night like accusatory fingers. Guards with Alsatian dogs patrol, their breaths visible in the crisp air. Inside, the barracks reek of unwashed bodies and despair. Kowalski is shoved into a hut with 100 others, gaunt faces, hollow eyes. "Name and rank," a German officer demands through a translator. "Private Vincent Kowalski, U.S. Army." The officer nods, logs it in a ledger. "You will work, you will obey." But Kowalski's eyes dart around.
Tools in the workshop, scraps of metal, a glimmer of possibility amid the misery. Whispers circulate, escape attempts crushed, men shot in the killing field, an 80-yard no-man's land between the wire and freedom. 7 tries in 4 months, 9 dead. The searchlights are relentless, turning night into day at the slightest twitch. MG-42 nests ready to mow down runners. Private Raymond Torres, a wiry kid from Texas, leans in one night. "They got us good, Vinny. No way out without turning into Swiss cheese." But Kowalski lies on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. His hands itch for work, for creation. Back at Ford, he fixed machines that others deemed broken. Here, in this cage, a flicker flickers, quiet, insistent. What if the night could be silenced? What if the roar of a gun became a whisper? As the weeks drag, the camp buzzes with darker rumors, the wars turning, allies advancing, but SS orders to liquidate prisoners if defeat looms. Tension builds like a storm. Kowalski starts scavenging, a file here, a spring there. His fellow POWs notice but say nothing. One evening, as the searchlights carve arcs across the compound, he tests a crude baffle in secret, a soft pop instead of a bang. Hope stirs. But then a guard spots him tinkering. Verboten. The device is confiscated. Kowalski hauled to the commandant's office. "This modification violates Kriegsvergessen and regulations, and your own army's rules, court-martial material." It's banned, destroyed before his eyes. Despair crashes in. Yet in the solitary cell that night, Kowalski's resolve hardens. They'll need more than bans to stop him.
January 1945. Stalag 7A. The barracks are a tomb of frost and hunger, the air thick with the sour smell of wet wool and dysentery. Kowalski lies on his thin pallet, eyes fixed on the faint light leaking through the cracked window. The guards confiscated his first suppressor, a crude tube of rolled sheet metal and packing, and burned it in front of him as a warning. "No more inventions, Przewalski," the commandant had said in clipped English. "Next time, you go to the cellar." The cellar means solitary, dark, endless. But the idea won't die. It burns hotter than the cold. Kowalski has always been a fixer. At Ford, he once rebuilt a broken assembly line in one night using only scrap and ingenuity. Here, he has even less. Still, he begins again, quietly, methodically. During work details in the camp's repair shop, he pockets small pieces, a length of exhaust pipe, a spent shell casing, scraps of felt from the tailor's bench. At night, under the blanket, he files, taps, tests. His fingers, cracked and bleeding from the cold, move with the patience of a surgeon. Private Torres keeps watch. "You're gonna get us all shot, Vinny." But Torres stays, holding the flashlight made from a razor blade can and a bulb stolen from a guard's lamp. The others in the hut, Captain Ellis, the wounded pilot from the 8th Air Force, Corporal Novak from Chicago, young Private O'Malley from Brooklyn, watch in silence. They understand. The war is grinding toward its end, but the guards are growing desperate. Whispers of the SS arriving to clean the camp before the Americans reach the Danube have everyone on edge. Kowalski's second attempt is better. He threads the exhaust pipe with a series of baffles cut from tin cans, packs them with layers of felt and wool, seals the end with a threaded cap he machined from a broken mess tin. The barrel of a smuggled .45 pistol, lifted from a careless guard during a work detail, slides inside the tube. He test fires it in the latrine one moonless night, muffled by the snow outside. A soft cough, barely louder than a door closing. No flash, no report, just a wisp of smoke and the metallic tang of burnt cordite. He calls it the Whisper Mod. The name spreads in hushed tones among the prisoners. They bring him more parts, a second pistol from a dead guard's holster, a third from a black market deal with a sympathetic Pole. Kowalski builds 3 suppressors in total, each one lighter, quieter,
more reliable. He teaches Torres how to reload the magazines in the dark, how to strip and clean the weapons without making a sound. Then comes the turning point. February 12, 1945, 2200 hours. The camp is on edge. Allied artillery can be heard rumbling in the distance, closer every day. A rumor spreads. The SS have arrived to take over Stalag 7A. The commandant, a decent Wehrmacht officer, has quietly told the senior American officer that he cannot guarantee the prisoner's safety if the SS orders liquidation. That night, in the shadows of Barracks 17, Kowalski gathers a small circle of men he trusts. "We've got maybe one shot at this," he whispers, laying out the plan on a scrap of paper. The main gate is too heavily guarded, but the south fence, the one near the old drainage ditch, is only patrolled by 2 sentries and a single searchlight tower. If we can take them out silently, we can cut the wire, get to the ditch, and disappear into the woods before the alarm sounds. Captain Ellis raises an eyebrow. Silently? With what? Kowalski lifts the Thompson, the same one taken from him in the Ardennes, returned to the camp armory after a guard trade. He screws the whisper mod onto the barrel. The weapon now looks almost comically long, like a rifle with a swollen muzzle. With this, the men stare. Torres whistles softly. "You're insane." "No," Kowalski said, voice steady. "I'm ready." They wait until the searchlight sweeps past, then move like ghosts through the compound. The snow has stopped. The night is black and still. Kowalski crawls to the ditch, pistol in hand, Thompson slung across his back. The first sentry appears, a young German, barely 20, stamping his feet against the cold. Kowalski raises the suppressed pistol. A soft pop. The sentry crumples without a sound. The second guard turns, startled, but Torres is already there, knife flashing. They drag the bodies into the ditch. The tower guard is next. Kowalski takes position, Thompson ready. The searchlight sweeps again. He waits until it passes, then steps into the open. The guard's silhouette fills the tower window. Kowalski aims, steadies, fires. A muffled thud. The man slumps forward, dead before he hits the floor. The light keeps sweeping. No one noticed. They cut the wire. The first prisoners slip through. 20, 30, 40. Kowalski stays behind the wire, covering the escape. He fires again and again, each shot a whisper that drops a guard before the man can raise his rifle. The Thompson's drum magazine holds 50 rounds. He burns through 2 of them in minutes, every shot precise, every target falling silently into the snow. By 02:30, over 100 men have vanished into the darkness. Kowalski is the last to go, pausing only to drop the empty magazine and reload. He looks back once, at the silent camp, at the searchlight still sweeping an empty compound, then disappears into the woods. The Germans won't discover the breach until dawn. By then, the escapees will be miles away, heading south toward the advancing Americans. But Kowalski's story isn't over yet.
February 13, 1945, 0400 hours. Somewhere in the dark forest south of Moosburg. The snow has turned to freezing rain, turning the ground into a treacherous slurry of mud and ice. Kowalski leads the column of escaped prisoners, 101 men now, counting the stragglers who joined at the last moment. Their boots suck at the earth with every step. Breath steams in the cold like cigarette smoke. No one speaks. The only sounds are the crunch of footsteps, the occasional cough, and the distant rumble of artillery that reminds them the front is moving closer. Kowalski's Thompson hangs heavy across his chest, the whisper mod still threaded onto the barrel. The drum magazine is down to its last 20 rounds. His shoulders ache from carrying it all night, but he refuses to let anyone else take it. This is his weapon, his creation. It saved them once. It might have to do it again.
The group moves in single file, guided by a compass stolen from a guard and the faint glow of a hand-drawn map Captain Ellis keeps tucked inside his coat. They're aiming for the Iser River, then west toward the advancing 7th Army. But the terrain is merciless. Frozen streams, steep ravines, patrols of Volkssturm, old men and boys armed with rifles in desperation. Every ridge they crest could hide a German ambush. By dawn, they're exhausted. Frostbite nibbles at fingers and toes. Private O'Malley, the youngest, collapses in the snow. Kowalski kneels beside him, rubs his hands, forces him to drink from a canteen. "We keep moving, kid. You stop, you die." O'Malley nods, teeth chattering, and staggers on. They hide during the day in a copse of pines, huddling together for warmth. Torres keeps watch while Kowalski cleans the Thompson in silence, oiling the suppressor's baffles with a drop of machine oil from a tiny vial he kept hidden in his boot. The barrel's warm from the night's work, the metal slick with condensation. He runs a finger along the perforated tube he machined from a bicycle frame. It's still intact, still quiet. Night falls again. They press on. February 15. They reach the Iser at a narrow ford. The river is swollen with snowmelt, black and fast. A German patrol is on the far bank. 6 men, a machine gun mounted on a tripod. Kowalski signals the column to halt. He crawls forward on his belly, Thompson ready. The rain has stopped. The moon is out, silvering the water. He waits until the patrol leader lights a cigarette, the flare of the match briefly illuminating their faces. Kowalski raises the weapon. 1 shot. 2. 3. Soft coughs in the night. The cigarette drops into the mud. The gunner slumps over the MG-42. The others fall without a sound. The riverbank is silent again. The prisoners cross in groups of 10, holding hands to keep from being swept away. Kowalski stays on the near bank until the last man is across, then wades in himself. The water is like knives. He emerges on the far side, shaking, teeth clenched. Torres claps him on the shoulder. "You're a ghost, Vinny, a goddamn ghost." They keep moving. Days blur into nights. They scavenge potatoes from abandoned farms, drink from streams, sleep in ditches. On the morning of February 20, they hear tanks, American tanks. The rumble is unmistakable. Shermans, their engines growling like angry bears. The prisoners break into a run, stumbling over roots and rocks, shouting with hoarse voices. They burst onto a road just as a column of the 11th Armored Division rolls past. GIs in olive drab stare in disbelief as 101 ragged, bearded men in tattered U.S. uniforms stumble out of the woods, hands raised in surrender. Then recognition dawns. "Prisoners, they're ours!" Medics swarm them. Blankets are thrown over shoulders. Hot coffee is pressed into numb hands. A lieutenant with a clipboard asks for names and units. When he reaches Kowalski, he pauses. "Private Kowalski? You're the one with the modified Thompson?" Kowalski nods, too tired to speak. The lieutenant's eyes widen. "We heard about the breakout. 100 men, silent as church mice. The Germans still don't know how you did it." Word spreads fast. By the time they reach the field hospital in Landshut, Kowalski's story has grown legs. Reporters from Stars and Stripes and the Associated Press crowd around. "How did you silence the guards?" Kowalski shrugs. "We just got lucky." But the army brass are listening. A colonel from the provost marshal's office arrives the next day, accompanied by 2 MPs. They take Kowalski aside. "That suppressor," the colonel says, "is illegal under the Geneva Convention. It's also against army regulations. You could face court-martial." Kowalski looks at the man, eyes steady. "I saved 100 men, sir. 101, counting me. If that's a crime, lock me up." The colonel hesitates. He glances at the reporters outside the tent, at the men Kowalski saved, still gaunt but alive, laughing, hugging each other. He sighs. "We'll see about that, soldier." The next morning, a general pins the silver star on Kowalski's chest. The citation reads, "For extraordinary heroism in the face of the enemy." It makes no mention of the whisper mod. Officially, the device never existed. Unofficially, it becomes legend. But Kowalski keeps the Thompson, now stripped of its suppressor, until the day he ships home. He never fires it again. Years later, in a quiet Detroit garage, he'll build another one, just for himself, just to remember the night he turned a banned invention into a miracle. And somewhere, in the archives, a classified report still exists. Operation Silent Escape, Stalag 7A, February 1945. 101 prisoners liberated, 0 casualties. Method unknown. But Kowalski knows the truth, and so do the men who walked out of that camp alive.
May 1945, Detroit, Michigan. The war is over. Germany has surrendered, the guns are silent, and the factories that once churned out tanks and bombers are shifting back to automobiles. Vincent Kowalski steps off the train at Michigan Central Station, still in his dress uniform, the silver star gleaming on his chest. He looks older than his 24 years, hollow cheeks, eyes that have seen too much. His mother cries when she sees him. His father, a Ford line foreman, simply grips his shoulder and says, "Welcome home, son." But home doesn't feel the same. The city is loud, bright, full of life that never stopped. Kowalski walks the streets of Delray, past the smokestacks and row houses, and feels like a ghost. At night he wakes sweating, hearing the soft cough of the whisper mod, seeing German sentries fall into the snow. The dreams are vivid, relentless. He keeps the Thompson in a locked trunk in the garage, stripped of its suppressor, but he never fires it again. The weapon is a reminder of the night he became something more than a soldier. Word of the escape spreads beyond the army. Stars and Stripes runs a front-page story. Silent escape. 101 men walk out of Stalag 7A. Reporters track Kowalski down. He gives them the bare facts, never mentioning the suppressor. "We got lucky," he says, again and again. But the men who walked out with him know the truth. Captain Ellis writes a letter to the War Department. "Private Kowalski's ingenuity saved every one of us." Corporal Novak tells the story over beers at the American Legion. Private O'Malley, now a machinist himself, shows the scar on his hand from the barbed wire and says, "Vinny made the night quiet enough for us to live." The Army, however, wants the story buried. The whisper mod violates the Hague Convention's ban on silencers that could be used for assassination. The Provost Marshal's office classifies the entire operation, stamping the report secret. Kowalski is quietly warned, "Speak of the device and you will face court-martial." He nods, salutes, and goes back to work at Ford. He never tells the reporters. He never writes a memoir. He simply lives. But legends have a way of leaking. In the 1950s, OSS veterans and early CIA operatives hear the story through back channels. They want suppressors for their own use. The Army, embarrassed by the ban they once enforced, quietly begins testing similar devices. By the 1960s, the first official M1 carbine suppressors appear in Vietnam, crude but effective. The whisper mod is never mentioned by name, yet its design lives on in the baffles and packing that still quiet the world's special forces. In 1975, a young engineer at a small arms company in California digs through declassified files and finds the old Stalag 7A report. He reads about the unknown method and smiles. He builds a modern version, lighter, more efficient. It becomes the first commercial suppressor available to civilians in the United States.
He never names it after Kowalski, but the design is unmistakable. Years pass. Kowalski retires from Ford, moves to a quiet suburb, marries a nurse named Marie who understands silence better than most. They have 2 daughters. He coaches Little League, fixes cars in his garage, tells war stories only when asked, and even men only the safe ones. The Thompson stays in the trunk. The suppressor, long destroyed, lives only in memory. Then, in 1998, a documentary crew from PBS contacts him. They're doing a piece on the Battle of the Bulge and the liberation of POW camps. They want to interview the man who led the silent escape. Kowalski, now 77, agrees. The cameras roll in his living room. He speaks softly, eyes distant. When the interviewer asks about the unknown method, Kowalski pauses. For the first time in 53 years, he smiles. "I built something," he says, "a way to make a gun whisper instead of roar. They banned it, then they needed it. Funny how that works." The documentary airs on Veterans Day. Viewers see the old man in the cardigan, the silver star on the mantel, the quiet pride in his voice. Letters pour in. Veterans who were there that night write to thank him. A young Marine in Afghanistan sends a photo of his own suppressed M4 carbine with the caption, "Thanks, sir," still whispering. Kowalski dies in 2007 at the age of 86. At his funeral, the American Legion fires a rifle salute, 3 volleys that echo across the cemetery. But the last round is fired from a suppressed pistol, a soft pop that only the family hears. It's Private O'Malley, now a grandfather himself, honoring the man who made the night quiet enough for 101 souls to walk free. The Thompson is donated to the National Museum of the United States Army. The plaque reads, "Thompson Submachine Gun, M1 1928A1, used by Private Vincent Kowalski, 99th Infantry Division, Stalag 7A Escape, February 1945. It stands alone in a glass case, barrel clean, stock polished. No suppressor, no mention of the whisper mod. But every year on February 12th, a small group of men gathers in front of it, gray-haired now, wearing old uniforms with faded patches. They stand in silence for a moment. Then one of them whispers, "Thanks, Vinny." And somewhere in the quiet, the legend lives on.